Hey, welcome to a new episode of Last Call Baseball, number 136. I'm Dorian. Are you enjoying the World Series? I am. And I love the contrast to the offenses. You have in one corner the Arizona Diamondbacks with their death by 1,000 cuts offense. They bunt, they steal, they'll hit a single, a little flare out to left field, and all of a sudden they put 2 runs on the board. You're like, how in the world is this offense sustainable in the year 2023 Anno Domini? I don't understand it. We were just a week ago, or even 2 weeks ago, everyone was just fretting the Philadelphia Phillies, the power, the home runs, the brashness. And then you have the Diamondbacks who play baseball like it's like the 1970s, and they're here in the World Series, and now it's 1 game apiece. And on the other corner, you have the Texas Rangers rock and roll offense. They're hitting home runs. They get that. It's exciting. It's almost indulgent to watch the Texas Rangers play offense because they're just mainline excitement, energy, and power right into your baseball veins. And I love the contrast of it. And I would not mind if this series goes 6 or 7 games. And obviously the next 3 games are going to be in Arizona. I do hope that they go back to Texas. I don't really have a preference of who's going to win because whoever wins is going to be a good story. And that means just a little bit more baseball until obviously the Latin American leagues start. I think like in a week or two, because I know the Nicaraguan Winter League starts on November 3rd, and the Dominican Lidom Winter League just started last week. I'm very excited about Winter League. I love Winter League in Latin America. Did you guys hear about the Matthew Perry passing away last night during the World Series? Obviously, the guy had issues with drugs and alcohol and all that stuff. Rest in peace and all that. But I didn't know that Matthew Perry was a huge Toronto Blue Jays fan. And apparently, I never really watched Friends. I thought that was an unfunny show, but I know it was a very popular show. But apparently, wherever Matthew Perry's character worked, Matthew Perry made it a point that in the show, The Friends, he would always have prominently displayed a Toronto Blue Jays hat, which I think was pretty cool. Like if I was some actor or some big time, I would probably do something like that. Of course, I probably would have like the Atlanta Braves, but I think it's very cool that like, look, I'm a big bad actor and I want my favorite team, my character to be represented by my favorite sports team. In his case, it was the Toronto Blue Jays because I think his father was American and mother Canadian, or the other way around, but nevertheless, he was half Canadian, half American. So rest in peace, Matthew Perry. And I hope that the World Series goes on for like another 4 or 5 games because it's a lot of fun. And I also had fun talking with an artist this week who did some work for the Texas Rangers. This week, our special guest is Kyle Steed, a Dallas-based artist. Kyle, welcome to Last Call Baseball.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
What nourishes your creativity?
What nourishes my creativity? That's a great question. I like this question better than what inspires you because that question gets a little tiring to me. I think the way I like to recharge or replenish myself, I think like the act of creating is a lot of giving. And so I like walks. I enjoy trying to slow down, appreciate. I think we live in such a fast-paced world and just feels like we're always moving from one thing to the next to the next. Journaling is really big for me. I think that's a really good practice that I've cultivated almost every morning, whether it's drawing, whether it's writing. That kind of helps my mind just kind of start to engage for the day. Yeah, simple things, making coffee, having a good conversation with someone.
When you're talking about journaling, I find this interesting is you were saying that you can either draw or draw in your journal. Do you write in your journal or
I
do you just...
do. Yeah, it's a mashup between to-do list, notes from, I don't know, like I could be drawing notes while we're doing this call, or if I'm on the phone waiting with an internet provider, who knows? But and then yeah, I do also just I would like the practice of like a free flow of thought writing. I don't really have specific goals in my writing, more just like as a simple as like another extension of expression.
That's interesting. I like writing things down, but not so much as you said, like to-do lists. It's more of if I find something that just grabs my attention, I want to document it and then
Mm.
go back to it. And it usually I try to write down nice things, not bad things.
That's good. That's a good practice. Yeah, sometimes like if I have a very vivid dream, I'll write it down. If it's still in my mind, I feel like sometimes those can be important just to kind of gleam. I don't know if so much I'm trying to understand it so much as I'm like, wow, that was kind of messed up, or like, oh, I haven't thought about that person in a long time and they just showed up. So yeah, I kind of jot those things down.
Not only do I love talking to creatives, specifically artists of all forms and types, the specific reason I asked you to come on and I wanted to talk with you is that a few years ago you were invited by the Texas Rangers, the newly crowned American League pennant winners who are going to play in the World Series this weekend, to do a mural at Globe Life Field. Talk to us through how they approached you, what the work that you did, and I'd love to hear about your whatever anything else with the Texas Rangers.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that was a really fun project. I actually was able to work on that during COVID. The stadium at that point in time was still, well, when I first got contacted by the team, I was super excited. I remember growing up, I didn't grow up in Texas. So I'm originally from North Alabama, the Southeast, but my dad lived in Fort Worth as a kid. So we would come out, and I remember seeing Nolan Ryan pitch. I remember going when the previous new stadium was just built there in Arlington. I think the park at Arlington is it's called. So that just always held like a special place for me in my childhood. So it was kind of a dream scenario getting contacted by them to come into the new stadium. And so getting my first tour there and seeing it was really special. We went back and forth for it felt like a long time. It could have just been, 3 or 4 months while they were kind of also deciding because they brought in a whole group of artists to activate certain points throughout the stadium. And my location changed a handful of times, but the wall that it ended up on, I think, was it's a little bit off the beaten path. It's up on a more like a suite level, I believe. But it's a great wall. I mean, it sits right here on it sits on a 90-degree corner, and I'm utilizing, both sides of it. But they had this really great concept. They wanted to talk about or kind of memorialize in a way, like in my own style, the story of the Rangers and the history of being in Arlington. So there's a nod to all three different versions of the stadium that they've played in. And then there's kind of hidden, like little Easter eggs of landmarks around the city in Arlington. But then they were also very open to my own sense of exploration and just the creativity to bring the piece more to life. So it is this, while simple in kind of execution, just black on a white wall, it's highly detailed. There's just a lot happening in it. So I think it's really fun. You can kind of stare at it for a long time and you just discover all sorts of different things happening within it. But I think that's what kind of brings it to life and gives it movement. It makes it more dynamic. And they were great in terms of providing feedback, going through the creative process with them, showing them initial drawings and sketches. And it was a collaborative process, over the course of, I mean, I think 2 months of that upfront were just the drawings. And for me, that's how I always work on any project is we started talking about like the way I get in my journal when I'm writing or I'm drawing, but for bigger commercial work like this, it always starts on paper for me. So there's something there's something that connects for me in the tactile experience of putting pens or pencils or what have you down on paper versus like if I just start on my iPad or in the computer, like there's a disconnect there for me. So yeah, I very much like to be hands on.
I want to share with people that I definitely think that they should look up Kyle's mural in Dallas. Excuse me, Kyle's mural in Arlington at Globe Life Field. Even if it's online, it's not going to make total justice to it, but it's kind of like a Where's Waldo. As you said, it's like black and white, and as you said, everything seems like there's like a little Easter egg. Like you could genuinely study each little square foot of it
Right.
and find
Yeah.
something delightful.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That was kind of the point. Like they really had that vision for it of wanting it to be this kind of map, but this sense of discovery within it as well. Yeah. Yeah. And it's worth if anyone that has a chance to go or if they have seen it, like to see the work in person, I think it's worth going to see it. Yeah.
Yeah, the Rangers are going to play at least what is it? At least 2 games at home, maybe even 4 if it goes to the World Series goes to 7 games.
Absolutely.
Plenty of time to pay $27 for a pint of beer and to see Kyle's work in
It's a
walking
win-win.
around the concourse. Exactly. So did any of that come with like perks? Like, oh, here's some tickets, here's a free parking voucher. It was kind of like, thank you for your work, firm handshake.
No, of course,
Goodbye.
yeah. They're no, no, no. They've been wonderful since then. Yeah, I've gotten some good seats out of it. But yeah, I mean, I think one of the greatest perks is having my work there. It's embedded within the stadium itself. So yeah, I think I didn't really look at it much beyond that, and they've been very gracious in the after, math of having done the work and continuing to have a relationship with them. But yeah,
During the World Series, because a lot of times in these sporting events they have like they do like that drone overhead shot of the city, and they also do it like in the concourse. I'm going to petition Fox, because they're the ones who are going to be broadcast the World Series, to do that concourse shot, but specifically
absolutely.
where your artwork is, so everyone can see it.
Yeah, let's make it happen. Yeah.
you know
Okay.
leading leading up to talking with you, I was like looking up your work, and I really enjoy it. I'm looking at it now. It's behind you. It's not just colorful, but it's very striking. Has anyone ever told you that the work you do is almost like a Mayan hieroglyphs? Or
Yeah,
have you done that deliberately?
there is some intentionality around the structure of my work, lending itself. It's like a nod to the past. Yes, I've received that comment numerous times. Yes, and I don't really take it as a good or bad thing. I think we all understand, and when we look at works of art, we're always holding them up to things that we know or things that we've seen or things that we're already familiar with. In my work, I'm not arrogant enough or pretentious enough to say that I'm doing original new things. I think everything's been done, but what I do believe in is that not everything has been done by me, and so it's part of my life's work to just continue evolving, continue my craft and my practice to not just try and make something purely original for original sake, but just to have something original maybe to say. And I think how that style, if you want to call it that, but how it looks has been evolving over time as well. I also like to think about like my work is highly structured. There's an organized. I think those are two things that I'm really drawn to because there's not a lot in life that I can control and organize. And so in my work, when I'm painting, those are that's kind of what I'm seeking more. Does that make sense?
I'm following what you're saying. And also, to be an artist, not no, to be a visual artist, you need your eyes. And I noticed you wearing eyeglasses. Going off on murals, you also did a mural for Warby Parker, which was completely different than the very more detailed one you did for the Texas Rangers. Did that also
Correct.
come with like a here's a voucher for some free frames? No, I'm joking. You gotta tell us about that. But I find it very fascinating because I love seeing murals, especially on the sides of houses. I've told one of my friends he has a massive side of brick wall that he could put murals on. But
Hmm.
yours is so drastic. Like if you were to put you, if anyone looks up Kyle's mural for Warby Parker and Kyle's mural for the Texas Rangers, you would not think it's the same artist.
No.
Whereas the almost where Waldo-ish type of adventure for the Texas Rangers, the Warby Parker one was very drastic, very big, very bold. Tell us about how that came about.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. That's kind of the it's kind of the fun of being able to execute it two different styles. With the Rangers, they had that they had that ask, they had the request for that style. I would not have chosen, I think, already in my evolution where I'm wanting my work to go is more in line with what I did for Warby Parker, the bolder colors, the bigger expression, a little cleaner, a lot cleaner. It's just more graphic. But yeah, when Warby Parker came to me, I already knew that they had a store in Dallas, but they were opening up this new location right off 75 in Knox Henderson. And they wanted to activate the whole exterior and wrap it in original work. And so it was a big honor. They were equally an amazing client to work with. And they really kind of let me run with it with my vision. And then they had very succinct, like very good, but very small kind of notes for feedback. I knew putting people into the mural was important. I knew highlighting glasses was important. But I'm thinking for that piece specifically, and that was also created. Was that in 2020 or 21? Yeah, just the sense. I believe it was the year after, so it had to have been 21. Almost a sense of like coming out of that. I mean, and I know that some of that's still carried over, but a sense of community, a sense of just being back together with other people. So that's why you see multiple different people featured in the mural. But I love those bigger, bolder colors. Like I love how much it stands out. Like it really captivates your attention as soon as you make that exit right off of 75. It's like you cannot miss it. Yeah, I love that I have a chance to put more color like that into the world. I think for most part, the world is kind of a very muted place, color wise.
I agree with you. I love color. I love color, what you wear, and obviously what you put on your walls or on your floor.
Hmm.
Even though I'm not a visual artist, I can't capture things like you. Well, I'm not a visual artist, but I love capturing parts of visual artists like yourself. I want to talk about Polaroid because a little birdie on the street called the internet told me that you use or have used Polaroids. I am also a Polaroid user, and I want you now for the next 3 hours to show me how to properly use a Polaroid because I have a Polaroid SX70. I have
Perfect.
spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars on film, and I have like a 75% failure rate when the knobs from the light. I mean, this is actually from the 70s. This isn't like the new retro one. It's this actually
No,
from
I
the
have the
70s.
same one. Hmm.
What am I doing wrong, Kyle?
I don't know. You might be overexposing, might be underexposing. They are very light sensitive. I will say that. And I have an original SX70 as well. And you would think that you might you could be outside in the full sun and you might be worried about it overexposing, but it literally needs like that much light. Anything less, it's going to be completely dark. Unless if you can do I don't even know if you can buy the flash. Some of them had it
I think
within
I've
the
seen it
camera itself.
on Amazon or something, or maybe like on eBay you can buy it, but I haven't. Yeah, I haven't got
Yeah,
into that.
I have not shot with that camera in a few years now. I have a Fuji. Yeah, Fujifilm. Thank you. Instant. It's one of the wide cameras. I bought it on eBay. It's an older model, but I love them because it's so consistent. And the film you can still buy new.
So is
Oh,
it
I wish
the?
I.
I know that there's new Fuji one. It came out a while ago. Is it the ones that come out slim, or is it the actual like Polaroid size one?
No, it's the wider format one.
Okay,
Yeah, they have the mini
right.
Instax.
The mini. That's what I'm thinking about. Right.
Hmm. Yeah, and I've shot with those before, but most of those are just, I mean, they're good, but a lot of the times the cameras themselves are really cheap, so they don't last that long. This Instax wide that I bought from It actually shipped from Japan, but it's one of the only models that they made where it has an autofocus. So as soon as you press the shutter, it'll actually focus for you. The camera will focus itself on the subject, because a lot of the times then it's just guesswork.
Right.
And that's the same thing with the Polaroids, is you have to know the distance you're standing from. But yeah, I mean, I've shot off and on with instant film for 20 years. I guess I have a whole box back here somewhere that's just got years and years of instant film. I love it though. I think it's, again, it goes back to my love for things that are tactile. I don't know, maybe that comes from, when I was growing up, my grandparents always had slide film and they would pull the projector out at holidays and we would go through the slides. Like nobody does that anymore. It's, I mean, you can get books printed from your phone and those are great, but I really love, like, there's a quality to them.
Right.
There's a imperfection to them. And I think that's what I'm
That's
really
exactly what
drawn
I was going to
to.
say. Yeah, the imperfection
Hmm.
is very charming, but at the same time, when you see, I love watching like retro shows, but let's say like Miami Vice. When inevitably when the dead body shows up, the not the coroner, but the whatever, the investigation team, the homicide team comes and they have the
There we go.
Polaroid. They take a picture of the body and it comes out and it's like perfect on TV. This is
Yeah.
back like in circa 1986. And then I
Yeah.
just see that and I look over at my Polaroid SX70. I was like, why can't that be you? Like that come out that crisp and perfect, because back then it did. And now it doesn't. And that focus thing is way too ahead of its time for a
Hmm.
1970s technology.
Well, they could have just been some movie magic too. They could have just been like
I don't know,
printed.
back in the 80s, back in the mid 80s. I don't know too much, but yeah, oh, it's so bad when all my friends and family, they know I'm whipping out the Polaroid and they kind of chuckle. It's like, oh, is it actually going to come out this time? But
But that's part of the fun. You don't know. You're just gonna
well,
see.
yeah, what I do like is using a black magic marker, and then obviously when it comes out, I'll write down like who's in this picture, where it was
Yes.
taken, and then the date,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
then maybe in 100 years from now, is going to see like who is this? Because I just see orange blotches everywhere.
Exactly. Yeah. No, do very much the same thing. I actually ended up a couple years ago buying, I'd have to look back where they came from, but albums that specifically fit the Instax photos, and then kind of like archiving them by the year and then just filling them up that way. And that's something that I would like to pass to my children. And, you know, but I think it is important to like annotate, okay, where was this taken? When was this taken? Just kind of as a record of life. Yeah.
You've done, as I said, you do Polaroids. I guess because it's fun. Or let's say the Fuji. You've done murals. You continue to do murals. You actually do paintings on canvases. What's another thing that you want to do to challenge yourself for to keep your neurons flashing?
I don't know. That feels kind of like enough. Do I need one more thing on my
No, I'm
plate?
not. I'm not saying that you should. It's just astounding your body of work, and it's like you've
Oh,
done 3 or 4 things, but it's a lot in all of them, and you're like, I don't. Maybe his next thing is going to be a reality TV show painting cars.
maybe. Let's see if anybody calls after this. Um, I just have
Or is there
known
something
this
that
to be
you've
true.
looked at and like that would be kind of cool to try out to put my finger in? Not that I need to be doing 50 pieces of
Hmm.
that.
You
You know what?
mentioned painting a car, which I would love at some point. That would be an amazing project to collaborate with, a great car maker. But yeah, I mean, I was just going to say this, that I've known since a really early age, and I know the term artist gets thrown a lot around a lot, I think even more so now. But that's kind of always that's been the path, and I'm still on that path. I just know that it's never a straight line to get there. I mean, we could talk about my 4 years in the Air Force versus like spending almost 7 years doing web design and graphic design. And it's like all these twists and turns, which is just life. And I still continue to wake up and just practice this craft and continuing to want to improve it and improve myself. So I don't know. I don't know what the next 5, 10 years may look like in terms of my body of work and where it's going and what it's being applied on. But I'm just hopeful that I'll always have this opportunity to to continue to create. It's what I love.
Absolutely. You mentioned the Air Force, and you were in the Air Force, and I believe you were stationed in Japan for a number of years. Everything that we do, everything that comes out of us is obviously part of accumulation of where we've been. Do you have any sense, or are there any remnants of your time in Japan it doesn't have to be your artist life, but just you in your own personal life? Are there any remnants of Japan within you and what you do?
Yes. Yeah. And you're right.
You're always
I
on
think we
time.
care.
Very Japanese.
Just, I wish I could say that were true. But that is, yeah, especially their train, their public transportation runs like clockwork. It's impressive. I mean, on a personal note, I've for the last number of years have been really committed to meditating practices like that. I think that are for me really necessary. But I think there's also something carried from my time there. They just have a real appreciation for the natural environment, for lack of a better word. I don't know how to really describe it, but I mean, it's living on an island and using and having to utilize the resources that you have there. So I don't know. I feel like just using what I have to the best of its ability. I don't know, somehow from that experience, transmuting all the way through now. Of course, if I could go back and do it again, I think I would do things differently, but it does not change the impact that living in a foreign country and such a beautiful country at that, like Japan is, had on me. And I was young. I was 22, so I was just kind of beginning my life, so to speak, at that time.
I've been to many Asian countries, but Japan is still one that I absolutely have to go, and I definitely want to go and spend 2 or 3 weeks. It's not, I definitely don't want to go for 3 or 4 days because it takes 3 or 4 days to get there.
Yes,
What
absolutely.
what I love about what I know of the Japanese culture, the Japanese people, I love the elegance in how they do even the most mundane thing, and just like
Mm.
respect is not the word I'm looking for, but it's like the formality of some things. And sometimes obviously they overdo it, but I just love that it's almost spiritual in a way. And I was going to ask you when you mentioned meditation, is there a specific type of meditation that you practice?
Not really. No, I don't really. I mean, I'm not trying to, yeah, subscribe to this certain method.
It has to
Um,
be transcendental meditation or nothing, Kyle.
yeah, I've heard this. Right. I mean, I do, and doing like breath work as well, but I, I find for me, it's like the point of meditation isn't to clear the head, isn't to transcend where I am. I think it's important to really be present. You can call this mindfulness as well, but I think that's what is so helpful, just to be a witness to your own life, to my own life. And I was just having this conversation with a friend earlier, but I think as long as we can be aware of what's happening in our lives and just be very present, then it kind of helps me stay more grounded. Yeah, and just to kind of show up to continue. But I think within that, painting also becomes a form of meditation for me, and especially within mural work where it's highly repetitive. So that part of my brain, it's satisfied by just the hand motions that just like kind of, it's not robotic, but just that repetitive movement where then my mind can be kind of free to also wander. Um, I love it. I mean, I think those two kind of go hand in hand a lot of times.
I like that how what we do in itself helps you concentrate. And I'm a big proponent of meditation. I think it's something that more people need to do in the US. And there are people who do it, but I think more people need to do it.
Mm.
Kyle, I always like asking a little bit more fun questions as we bring us down as if we were, transported to Mars in our transcendental
Okay.
state. I love having a drink on this show. I also noticed you have so many, honestly, very, very formal and polite Japanese, freaking awesome collaborations. You also collaborated with Bullet Whiskey when you did a 3D this is going to lead to our a question about drinks and food and stuff like that. Tell us about that. That's super
Okay.
cool because I'm like, Bullet Whiskey decided to
Yeah.
do a sneaker with an artist named Kyle.
Yeah. I was equally, I was kind of like, huh? I didn't really understand what they were, why they were doing this, but it was super cool. So they worked with me to do the design on this. It was yeah, it was like the world's first 3D printed sneaker. And then they worked with these amazing guys out of New York who ran this and still run this 3D print shop, and they can kind of just dream up anything. And so the collaboration where from my home here in Texas, able to come up with the design and then kind of send all the parts, all the I wouldn't say framework, but kind of, like the aesthetics of it, what it would look like. Yeah, and so Bullet has a kind of separate arm, a different division where they're really interested in like the arts and all things creative. So that's where this project kind of fell under. And then it was great. We did a launch party here for the reveal of that shoe, where they came in, they took over this whole. It was an old theater, but they put in a 3D printed bar in the front, and yeah, it was super fun. I still think that's in the last number of years was like one of the most unique, interesting, like super creative jobs that I've gotten to work on.
Kyle, I think you should throw the most amazing World Series viewing watch parties in your studio because you can invite people over and say, look, I got this 72-inch screen TV, drinks provided by Bullet. If you can't see the TV screen from 72 inches, we can get Warby Parker to get you some prescription glasses. And one of my sponsors, Texas Rangers, are in the World Series. This is going to be the best week for you, Kyle.
Man, yeah, good thing. Yeah, let's get this on the books. All right, it's already planned.
Great. I love it. Kyle, obviously you're in Dallas. Tell us of, I always love traveling, and I know a lot of not just baseball fans, but sports fans, they'll travel to see their team, whether you're an ice hockey fan, football, whatever. If anyone wants to go to the World Series this week, or even next year when their team goes to play the Texas Rangers, tell us some places that you love going. It can be the biggest place in the world or the smallest hole in the wall for food, drink, coffee.
So, I mean, and you have to understand, you come to, if people don't know Dallas, Fort Worth, they think of the airport DFW, but I mean, it's two major cities. And then you have Arlington in the middle. This is where the stadium is, but it's very spread out. It's a big sprawl. Living in Dallas, I mean, there's so many options. I think it's a sport in and of itself here to go out to eat and drink. We are not short on any number of bars and restaurants. I'm a fan. There's a great Tex-Mex place here called Jose. I think they do an amazing job. The food is excellent. The drinks are equally as incredible. They have one of the best things I love in the restaurant. They did this whole wall custom tile that's hand painted from an artist, and so it's got a great, I don't know, just like overall experience there. I'd have to sit down and think and write 10 more places down after this. There's a nice, like, if you want a little hole in the wall, something that's a little more off the beaten path. It's called Shaman, Xaman. It's actually here in Oak Cliff where I live, but they have a great back bar. If I'm into mezcal, I don't if you're familiar, if you're into that, or tequila, they have as well. But they've got a huge selection. Food is equally really good too. And so they do like small plates and stuff for dinner, but then they do like coffee and stuff up front in the morning. So that's a good little cafe. Maybe not as well known.
Those are good to write down next time anybody is in the DFW area. Kyle, I want to thank you for your time. If you want to share with us where we can find your work, where we can purchase some of your work, and where we can see it in person.
Okay. Yeah, my website be the best place to start, kylesteed.com. You can follow me on Instagram at Kyle Steed as well. And those are pretty much two main outlets. You see what I'm working on more currently through Instagram. The website is a great portfolio piece, so it highlights all of my previous works, murals, fine art, things like that.
Thanks to Kyle for joining us this week. I genuinely always appreciate having creatives on this podcast and just talking with them. I think it's very cool. It's also cool when I fill my belly with some good beer. In my hand here, in my left hand here, I have Festbier. I took German for 1 year in high school, and I'm sure my pronunciation is terrible. It's a Munich-inspired lager from a good non-German American local brewery called Triple Crossing Beer in Richmond, Virginia. I'm gonna have a drink, so give me a moment. From what I've been told and what I've researched on the World Wide Web, is that Festbier is the traditional beer that you drink in Oktoberfest, and if you ever find yourself in Munich, Germany. And the funny thing is that I do not know why it's called Oktoberfest, because Oktoberfest is actually held, I believe, at the end of September. This is good. It feels good in my belly. It feels good drinking. What are you drinking during the World Series? What are you drinking when you're going to be handing out Halloween, when you're going to be handing out Halloween candy on Halloween? What about if your neighborhood or your city or town, you celebrate Day of the Dead, the Mexican, I don't want to say the Mexican Halloween, but it's still, they're kind of the same idea maybe. I don't know. On November 1st, Day of the Dead. And also, by the way, speaking of the dead and Halloween and ghosts and goblins, did you know that on November 2nd, it's National Deviled Egg Day? Gross. Deviled eggs are disgusting. If you ever have an office party and someone brings deviled egg, I will skip the office luncheon when the potluck lunch because I can't stand deviled eggs. They're gross. I love my eggs. I love eggs on a croque madame, on an omelet, and eggs Benedict, scrambled. You name it. I love eggs as long as you put in like some salt, some pepper, some parsley, mushrooms, whatever. Deviled eggs, big thumbs down. What are you drinking when you're scrolling through social media? You could be on our podcast. You could be on our social media accounts if you want. We're on Twitter with Last Call 4040 and on Instagram, Last Call Baseball. Thanks for listening to Last Call Baseball. Be great and get home safe.